Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Podcast with your host, Jeff Lopes. Jeff has over 2 decades experience as a serial entrepreneur, building brands like Kimura from his home basement to a multi-million-dollar global brand that has sold over 250,000 pairs of boxing gloves. Jeff's here to educate, guide, and drive you on the process of bringing your ideas and dreams to reality with the inspiring stories from some of the top business minds.
Welcome to episode number 57 of the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. We're excited to have on today, direct from Arizona, Dylan W. Joseph. Dylan is the co-owner of the company Conversions, an online digital marketing company. Great conversation, amazing story. What a journey this young man's had. Sit back, everyone, and enjoy. We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. We got a special guest today from Arizona, Dylan Joseph. We had Dylan's partner a few weeks back, great individual. So I'm excited to have Dylan on. Dylan, give a shout out to everyone.
Jeff, thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. I've actually been watching your journey, and since Joseph, my partner, my business partner and roommate, got on the show and got to sit down and talk to you. So I've been really looking forward to having this conversation.
I'm excited, brother. How I always start off our podcast, we do a little, I get to allow the audience to get to know you, what you're currently doing, a little bit about your business, and then we take the conversation because you have, despite your storylines and what I know of you, you got a very interesting aspect on life. You have the spiritual side, your business side. So you have a lot of stuff you're trying to balance, which I love. And we'll dive into it. So let's talk about business right now. What are you doing, your company, and get to know you a bit.
So my company is called Conversions. And the main thing that we do is help coaches scale their businesses to 10, 20K months organically. And then once they get to 10, 20K months organically through one-on-one coaching or a pair of group coaching and an online course, we then transition them into a hybrid model if they'd like to scale beyond 20K months. And we help them do that through paid advertising, through Facebook, Instagram, and eventually we bring in the other platforms to be able to help them scale from.
Very, very cool. So when did, I know we talked to Joseph about this before, but your company started, when did the company actually start? When did you guys move to Arizona?
So we moved to Arizona in January of this year. And we had been running a 7-figure company, it's an international company. It was an online business education platform. We had just under 10,000 members in 80 different countries. And we ended up shutting that down in March to start this company.
Was there a reason for shutting that down? Was it not going in the direction you guys wanted?
Happiness.
Yeah. Okay. Very
really
good.
That's the simplest thing is really, it was an affiliate based, an affiliate run company. Yeah. So it was a lot, and overall just didn't fully fit our vision in the way that we were looking to impact lives and how we wanted to be directly involved in the people that we were working with. And it got so large that it was very hard to do that. So we really took everything that we learned from that experience and applied it to one specific niche that we not only knew that we could serve best, but we enjoyed serving the most. And that coaches and client-based businesses that are going to go on to impact other people's lives that will then go to do the same thing. That ripple effect.
So it keeps giving, giving. So you're full-time now in Arizona. Where are you originally from?
Originally from upstate New York. So I lived in upstate New York until I was 20 years old. I did my first 2 years of college there. And then I went to Buffalo, which is western side of New York. I was in Buffalo for 2 years.
So you're on the Canadian border there?
Yeah, very close. Yeah, 15, 20 minutes. And then once I graduated college, I sold everything I owned and backpacked cross country playing music on the street for about 3-4 months. And like just busking on the street, playing until we made enough money to get to the next city. So we were using like the rideshare forum on Craigslist to get like a ride from San Diego to Phoenix. The first time I was actually in Phoenix, 2013. And then we would get buses if we couldn't get a ride off of the actual rideshare forum on Craigslist. And we just made it across country to Atlanta throughout the summer. And it was a while.
You said we, so that was you and who else?
My friend Brian, who's an incredible musician. And once we got to San Diego, it was just going to be him and I, but we met this big group of Irish guys that were staying at a hostel with us. And one of the they decided to go to Vegas for the weekend. And one of the guys, Richie, went there with everybody, blew all of his money, and still had like 2 months on his visa. So he got a bus back with no money left. And he's like, please, like, I know how to play the drums. We'll put together some like drum set kind of thing, and I'll join you guys on the road, and I'll just take whatever I need just to get by from like whatever we make each day. And I have all the instruments on my wall right here that we used, including the drum set that we ended up making from we were staying in a motel in like this like sketchy part of San Diego, where there was like MS-13 members like in the room next to us that are like sitting out on the stoop drinking 40s and stuff, and it was a broken down motorcycle. So we took the front sprocket off that, drilled it to a piece of wood and a log, and then just got drumsticks, and he just used that. So it was me, Brian, and our friend Richie from Cork, Ireland.
That is pretty awesome. And you guys do that for about 3 months, you said, give or take?
Yeah, it was beginning of June to the end of August. And we got to Atlanta, moved in to a cabin with my cousin on Lake Lanier in north of Atlanta.
Yeah.
There for like maybe 6-8 months, and was working as a server at a restaurant, and then decided to move to New Orleans. Applying at the same time, I applied for a New Orleans Police Department and a contract in the Peace Corps. Right. So it was going to be one or the other. Right. Now I ended up doing security for a bunch of different for movies. Right. I worked on Planet of the Apes and Jurassic Park and some cool stuff like that. And then I started doing security for like P. Diddy, Dwight Howard, Allen Iverson, 2 Chainz. And I did that for like maybe 8 months.
Was that through a private company or your own company at that point?
Private company.
Private company. Do you have do you have a background in self-defense or anything, or how did that all come about?
Yeah. So I've at this point I've probably have 16 years of martial arts training.
Okay, we're gonna continue the story. We'll get into that after. I want to get into that. Let's continue. So you're doing private security.
Yeah. So and then in August of 2014. I get a call from the Peace Corps offering me 2 years in either Ethiopia or Tanzania. And then that was on the Monday. And then on Friday, New Orleans Police Department called me and tells me it was like 3 p.m. and they tell me to be at headquarters by 4:30 to take a urinalysis and fill out all my paperwork because I'm starting the academy Monday morning. And this was the first I had heard from them in like the entire year.
That's crazy.
So I ended up, of course, like I chose the career. I had been arrested 4 times before I was 18. So I had taken all those bad experiences with police, and it put fuel on the fire for me to become a police officer, to be better than the officers that I dealt with. And so I had applied all over the country. I had been denied from probably 50 departments, right? 50 police departments. And then New Orleans took me, and I go on to make officer of the year 3 years in a row, my first 3 years as a police officer. So the rest of the departments missed out. Right? It was a wild experience. And so I ended up being there for 5 years. So I was just under 5 years. I was a police officer there from 2014 to 2019.
So how old were you when you exited the department?
I was 29. It was literally last January.
So it's that recent, huh?
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah.
Do you miss it?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, definitely miss the camaraderie, the adrenaline rush. More so like the fun side of things. I don't miss being hated because of the clothes that I'm wearing, right?
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the job, and I did it in a way that
you could be proud of.
Yeah, I was arresting, cold-blooded killers on a regular basis that at lockup were shaking my hand and thanking me for the way that I treated them.
Yeah, that's And I don't want to get too into it because we could get into it really because my two closest friends, my best man at my wedding, they're both police officers. A good circle of my friends are all police officers, and it's hard to see when there are a lot of good officers out there and everybody's shoved in the same bubble right now. And you're seeing what's happening in New York where officers are being spit on and stuff like that is happening right now in St. Louis and stuff. And I understand, but you can't justify one bad seed or two bad seeds or three bad seeds to a whole global thing, right? So it's just everybody's been pushed into this bubble right now when there are good cops. And a thing that bothers me is if there's a situation, who's the first person you're going to call? An officer. So it's hard to see right now. So it's it's hard. And the thing is right now too is how many people are actually applying to be cops. A lot of people don't even want to be officers now. Their enrollment rate is going to go drop right down, right? So what kept in your mind? Like, where was that turning point saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to move on to another career. Like, what flipped that? Were you already starting to do the entrepreneurial? Well, you're an officer, just kind of like, no, you weren't, huh? So what turned it?
So October 13th, 2017, my partner was shot and killed covering my shift. And it was like the one day I took off all year. Like my guys are literally making fun of me because I never took time off because I was just so obsessed with the job and loved it so much.
Yeah.
And I was going to my cousin's bachelor party at the Talladega Speedway, and I'm there in my boxers, sitting around the fire having a beer, around midnight, and my phone is between me and the fire on the ground, and my lieutenant's name pops up calling, and my heart just drops. Like I know she knows I'm at a bachelor party and she's calling me right now. And I just knew. So I pick up the phone and she tells me that Milk Dud is his nickname. He's this big black dude, big bald head, where, a perp actually had made fun of him once while we were arresting him and told him that his head looked like a milk dud, and he just owned this nickname. And she tells me that Milk Dud was shot and tells me he was shot in the head. And, eventually is able to get out that he didn't make it. And I collapsed and broke down for hours. And I was drinking at the time, and I didn't stop drinking for 150 days after that. From October 13th to February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2018, I drank every day. Whiskey was my drug of choice. Yeah. And I went into self-destruction mode. I was still doing a great job at work, but I was coming home, and I was in a relationship. I was engaged, which my engagement went viral. It was during Mardi Gras. I stopped Endymion Parade, and we had an incredible relationship, but this was the major shift. Then now ex-fiance. Yeah. So 150 days, and then I end up doing a 40-day alcohol-free challenge that allowed me to get my shit together before being offered to come onto the SWAT team. So they had been looking at me for a couple of years, really since the beginning, because my career started off with a guy in my unit being killed, and me 24 hours later, this is while I'm on the field training program, ending up in a foot chase with a shooter and catching him. So my name was kind of like put on the map a little bit right off the start of my career. Yeah. But so I ended up getting an opportunity to try out for the SWAT team. And I got my shit together right before that opportunity was put in front of me. And so I made the SWAT team, and it actually was called the Tiger Unit. The SWAT team was divided into two units, and the Tiger Unit was the Tactical Information Emergency Response Team. And so it was a team of like 22 detectives that were all SWAT operators as well. And so we worked on serial armed robberies and murders. And so I get on with them in about 8, 9, maybe 10 months. And I would quickly get into doing surveillance and more so undercover work, where I'm wearing, I'm either dressed up like a crackhead or I'm wearing some sort of construction outfit, driving a white Ford F-150 around, following around like legit serial killers, 16 hours a day, some a full 24-hour shift, and doing really good work. I absolutely loved what I was doing. Like what I was doing, you would like see in the movies. Like there's not many departments where you have an opportunity to fulfill what like you grew up watching.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That, like excited you to become a police officer. Right. And then December 2018, right, prime of my career, we're doing human trafficking cases. We're doing like the whole thing, everything that like my dream job, right? I'm loving what I'm doing. But in the academy, I wrote myself a letter. And in that letter, I gave myself my perspective, why I was doing this job, why I was choosing to put my life in danger for other people. And at the end of this letter to myself, I told myself, if you begin to change for the worst, it's time to go. And every year, around October, November, I would read this letter to myself and check in with myself. And as the years went on, I'd start to question, like, I'm still good. I just have to be aware, right? But 2018, when I read it, I broke down crying. Who I had started to become was not who I had set out to be. I was doing still an incredible job as a police officer, but who I was as a person become very cold, very negative, very cynical.
Do you think that's driven by all the shit you would see on a regular basis?
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
The amount of I've seen hundreds of dead bodies from being murdered, anywhere from 2 years old, to 90. Right?
Yeah.
I had seen and done and experienced so much that I become numb, and there's no way that you do that job for any amount of time past a couple of years, and that doesn't happen. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's because you have to learn how to deal with it so that you can do the job and show up for and serve the people that you sort of protect. Right.
Yeah.
So, and there's a very difficult balance there where there's a lot that now I'm seeing could have been done, say in the academy, and a level of support that could be integrated into police departments to help that alleviate that happening and developing without the awareness.
Yeah.
But I was.
Were you into a spiritual aspect of your life yet, or that just came in later on?
I was cold. I didn't believe in anything, not a single thing.
But just the bare fact that you're saying, Dylan, that you'd had that letter and you'd reflect on it every year there's a higher understanding of yourself just by you doing that, because a lot of people wouldn't take that time to do that and try to see themselves. I understand that you became cold and almost in a negative mindset because of all this shit you saw, and you saw the crap in this world. You saw a lot more hate than most people would see on a regular basis, right? So, but for you to actually have that mindset, even as you got into the academy, to do that to yourself, there was a kind of already a letter on the wall, if you want to say that this your spiritual side was your in the works in one way or another. You don't think so?
I think it's very possible. I actually haven't thought about that in that way. So one, thank you, because that definitely resonates, where it's like, wow, maybe I was a little more ahead than I thought I was as far as.
That's why I asked you, because by you saying that gave me a mindset like, hey, he was already somewhat understanding himself and understanding where spiritual could go so many different directions. And when I talk about spiritual, I look at it as just being a good person and a kind person. And there's, you could get to a very high level of spiritual, or you could just keep it very balanced, where my mindset is just breathe, relax, enjoy life for the moment, and at the same time be kind to people, and that'll come back to you. So there's a very basic level of spirituality there. And by you saying that, so in my head, that's why I asked you that question, because it seems just by the way you're talking that it was already in there, maybe not realizing, but it was already in there, right?
Very much so. Yeah. And so I think maybe that's that being there. So consciously, I was able to make this transition once my world opened up when I left the job. And okay, so maybe we're in December of 2018.
Yeah.
Right. First week of December 2018. All right. I was planning on buying a house, right? Being on the SWAT team for 25 years, working my way up to point man on the SWAT team, being the first man in the door. That was my goal, right?
Yeah.
25 years, 6 figures, everything's looking good. Next week, second week of December, I get a call, or actually I get a message on Facebook from my uncle that I hadn't spoken to in years. He's like, hey, just wanted to let you know, I know you love your job, but I just want to let you know New York State Police are hiring if you're looking to move back up north at any point in time. Messaging back, I'm like, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. But I think I'm pretty sure my tattoos disqualify me. Right. So myself and my fiance at the time, Sam, had been talking about moving up to Buffalo, where I went to school, at some point. And then it dawned on me, I should probably check with those departments to see if that's even a possibility because of my tattoos and their policies. Yeah. So I call Buffalo, I call Erie County, the only 2 departments that are busy enough that I would be sane working for. And I end up on the phone with 2 recruiters Monday and Tuesday that both are like, listen, we don't have anybody with a resume like you applying. So I can't guarantee you anything, but I believe that you would be an absolute asset to the actual department. And, just giving me like a good idea of like how the actual process would be to transfer. So then on Wednesday, I'm at work and my cover gets blown, and some dudes that want to kill me that are actually like very much like I'm the only person that has like is going to be able to testify for them and everything that I've seen to put them in jail for 20 to life, roll up on me at a red light. And I didn't know this, but we had just hit a house where we got a bunch of homicide perps out of the house with AK-47s and AR-15s and whatnot. I had hit the house with them in the vehicle that I burnt the vehicle, right? The vehicle now, everybody knows that it's burnt, right? They all know that I was using this as an undercover vehicle. And so we get everybody out of the house. My entire unit goes back to start doing interrogation. I decide that I'm going to go try to look for a few of these other vehicles that are involved in this huge operation. And sure enough, one of the vehicles that I'm looking for rolls up on me at a red light and rolls down the window just enough so I can see his eyes. And am I able to swear on here?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Yeah.
All right. He looks over at me, and I'm dressed up like a crackhead in like a 1998 Ford Taurus, right? And it's an absolute piece of shit. And he looks over at me, rolls the window down just so I can see his eyes, and he goes, "You don't think I know who the fuck you are?" And I start to raise my rifle up. I'm sitting back, I'm sitting back, like just waiting for rounds to start coming through the window. And I get it to the point where like it's high enough where if anything happens, I can just start letting off rounds. But all of a sudden it takes off, and it's like a blacked out infinity. I can't see. There's probably several guns pointed at me, and I don't know because I can't see. And they take off. Get ready to turn on the interstate. I go past them, and then they pull behind me again. So then I get into the opposite lane, stop at the stop sign, let all the cars go, and I'm waiting again. Now this is stupid. I wasn't in the right mindset at this point. Like I shouldn't have been waiting. I should have actually been on the radio letting people know what's happening, but I wasn't. I was just focused on getting ready for a gunfight. And they pull up again. Stares at me. He's like, he said, "I'm going to let you slide this time," and just rips off. No idea why. Probably because I treated him well the last time I arrested him. That's how he knew who I was. And so the way I treated him probably saved my life that day, because there was nothing stopping those rounds from coming through my car, right? So I get back to the compound, the SWAT compound, and the guys tell me, the guy that they're interviewing, that they're interrogating. Good. So I get back to the SWAT compound, and the guys tell me that the first guy that they're interrogating, one of the main homicide suspects, said as soon as they walked in the room, he goes, just so y'all know, before y'all ask me anything, I saved that fucking white boy's life on Monday. And so Monday, while I was at work, I was doing surveillance on this whole crew, right? It's like housing project. And I'm watching them all day, and they're in this like courtyard area doing their thing, slinging dope, bringing in stolen cars and whatnot. And I'm just documenting everything. And at some point, they look directly down the alleyway at me in the car. Now, there's people behind me about 30 yards. So I'm like, maybe they're looking over at them, right? I should be good. And then all of a sudden they disappear. After they look at me, they went away, right? Then they come back, and they're looking directly at me, walking straight down the alleyway. And I'm now getting ready again. Like, okay, this is something's about to pop off. And sure enough, this other guy comes out of nowhere and intersects with them. And they start talking. They all look down. They look straight at me, maybe 30 yards from me now, maybe 40 yards, and starts talking to them again, points the other way, and they all walk away, right? So we find out that they had went into this girl's apartment, got their guns, like Dracos, or like a small AK-47, and were on the way to just light up my car and try to kill me. And the guy that they're interviewing is the one that intercepted just in time to stop them. The shot caller.
Wow.
Tells them, y'all are not going to heat up this area. We're hitting the Hertz rental car place tonight and bring all the cars back here. So you can't make this place hot. Once he leaves, feel free to kill him. I don't care. But you're not going to do it here. All right. So that was Monday. Now on Wednesday, right, they roll up on me, those same dudes that wanted to kill me. And then so now he's close enough to see who I am. And I think in that moment, he remembered how I treated him the first time I arrested him. And that's why he let me slide. And I'd love to, right? My ego would like to be like, yeah, I would have won that gunfight, right? But like with 4 guns on me, 1 gun, and I got, even if it is a rifle, right? To be able to manipulate that in a car, and it's a long gun, it's very difficult, right? So Thursday, I'm in juvenile court, and this is just a pile up, right? This like is a massive transition within this 2-week period of mindset, right?
Yeah.
Thursday, I'm in juvenile court, and I get a phone call, right? My fiance had went home to Nashville for Thanksgiving, and she was still there. So I get this phone call from her father on down the court, and he never called me. Great guy, great relationship. He's one of the singers for the band Orleans. You know, like You're Still the One.
Yeah.
He's a singer for them, right? So he calls me. He's like, "Hey, bro, hope you're doing well. Listen, I'm gonna make this really short. All I've ever known is this incredible, beautiful couple, and you've done nothing but love my daughter extremely well and take care of her and support her, and I love you. And so that's why I'm calling you. I want you to know that if you don't get your shit together, she is going to leave you." She's like, "I didn't know you guys were doing so poorly." And in my mind, I'm like, I didn't know we were doing so poorly either. I'm in my own world working 60, 80 hours a week, and just had become numb. I'm just like so in my own world. So then Friday, like all this stuff hits me right at once. And now this is like the 3rd time that somebody's wanted to kill me or put a hit out on me or say that they're putting a hit out on me. Like they had like up to like $70,000 on my head, like threatened to that. Right. Like, now Friday she comes home, and as soon as she walks in the door, I'm like, "Sit down. Do you want to move to Buffalo?" She immediately was like, "Yes." I'm like, okay. And I just knew, I just knew that I couldn't stay there any longer. And I love my job, my team, like everything. I was making more money than I ever thought that I would have made in my life, which is funny because now I'm about to make it in 1 month, like instead of a year, right? I know I was growing up, I thought, 50K, right? That's my goal. And I'll be making, I'm making 100K a year, right? Blood money, like really working for it. And I just it just made sense. I just had to leave. I had to go. It was very scary. More so, I think the fear was not like what's the fear wasn't so much what's going to be next. My fear was about what my team was going to think about me. I really cared more about what they thought than anything, because internally I knew it was the right decision, but they're not going to understand. Right. So within 2 weeks, I put in my resignation letter, sold everything we owned, and packed up the car and went to Atlanta for Christmas, and then up to New York to Buffalo. And then within a month, I launched my first blog, and that's where business starts there. So
that's crazy, huh? When you launched your first blog, what was your first blog about?
So I've been writing a book since 2011, and
You said you've been writing a book since in 2011?
Yeah.
Is it? Have you released it, or is it still in the process?
No, it's still in the process.
It's a crazy journey, huh?
I know.
Through your whole story, before you even tell me what the book is, like, I want to dive into it a bit, but I'm listening to this story, and I'm like, and I know there's so many more layers of what's happened just in the short period of time from then till now. And I was going to actually tell you, like, you got to put this shit into a book, man. I was going to tell you that. That's the one thing I wanted to talk about. So, okay, let's talk about what the blog was about, and then start talking about your book and what's that process been.
Gotcha. So that's really they're one and the same.
Okay.
I realized what I wanted to do was be published by 30, right? And so it was my 29th birthday, so I had a year to like really crush this book out but do it right. So I wanted to only focus on that, which was like, okay, I need to start making some money online somehow. My first thought of that really ever. And then the second thing was I was learning about publishing, self-publishing, or getting a book deal. And no matter what, I needed 5,000 to 10,000 followers and readers to even be looked at. Right. Yeah. So I'm okay. Looks like I got to start a blog. I had never even shared any of my writing with my fiance, who I'd been with for 4.5 years at this point. And I went from not sharing any of my writing to launching a blog with all like really full open book, and had about 20,000 visitors to my blog in the first 3 weeks. And It landed me a gig writing for Law Enforcement Today, which has about like 3 million viewers each month. And within like 2 weeks, so I guess this is kind of cool to touch on. I had to, because of where I was staying with a friend, there was no room in the driveway for my truck. So I had to park at the dollar store like 6-8 blocks away, and it's dead of winter. So I had to walk home in like a blizzard every night.
In Buffalo. Right? For people in Buffalo, where people don't know Buffalo, it's bloody, a lot of snow and bloody cold.
Yeah. So I'm walking home, and every night I just have this crazy feeling. I'm like, I'm being pulled towards something incredible. I have no idea what it is. I can't explain it for the life of me, but I know that I'm being pulled towards something so great. And I come home and I tell Sam, and I'm like, I can't explain it to you, but I just want you to I just want to express it to you for when it actually happens. Cause I was that like trusting that it was going to happen. And she just was, the incredible supportive being that she is still today. And she's like, okay, like, we'll just wait until it comes. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, an opportunity falls into our lap to start an online business. Within a week of watching this webinar, okay, I got my entire supplement plan, okay, as well as really everything that I had besides my 401k at this point, and put it all in. Didn't do any research, solely intuition, gut. I did not look up a single thing. Like, this is it. I know it. I'm all in. Booked a one-way flight to London, all right, that same week for an event with the company with who Joey was working with.
Yeah.
Okay. And the event, which he was speaking on stage for his first time.
Yeah.
All right. And so go to London with my fiance. And then from there, it was a one-way flight because we were then going to backpack through Europe with a bunch of different leaders in the community of this company, which like immediately got it to the inner circle, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where I met Joey, Rob, and Ryan, who are all our business partners now that are running conversions with us.
Yeah.
Okay. And then backpack through Europe, hit like maybe 7-8 countries, jumped off a mountain for the first time ever with a parachute in the Swiss Alps, and really just had a great experience. Made my first few sales online, made like my first few $1,000 of like internet money while on a yacht in Budapest, right? Like Budapest, sorry. And yeah, it just was like, okay, this is going to be life now. So, that of course brought in the personal development as well as like a huge healing journey that I've been on, which has led to like the more spiritual side of things. But yes, that's how like business got started, as far as like really meeting everybody who's now one of my business partners in a completely different industry.
Yeah. So when this whole trip ended, you moved back to Buffalo?
Yes, for until August of last year.
You said you guys are not together. Do you mind me asking when roughly you guys split apart?
So we split in September of last year, literally like basically
a month after you guys got back, give or take.
Well, we got back in June.
Okay.
So we were together for 4 months. It was our 5-year anniversary in Hawaii. And I went to kiss her and she moved. And during that time, right, we had been on the rocks for about 2 years after everything happened with my partner. And she had really supported me so much that she stopped supporting herself. And I'm not the hero in that story. She's absolutely incredible. Yeah. Today we have a great relationship, but really it led to, we had grown and healed as much as we could together. And now it was time to do it, individually on our own and give each other that space.
Yeah.
And so, I decided to then move to Barcelona with the guys for a few months. Which is then what brought us to Scottsdale.
It's crazy. This is all in such a short period of time. From Budapest to Buffalo to Barcelona. How long were you in Barcelona for?
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah.
And at this time you guys were together growing the company out of Barcelona?
No, we were still working with the other company.
Yeah.
So
we were doing sales with them and stuff like that. Okay. Very, very cool. Were you guys partners in the other company or just working for them?
I was just contracted. The 4 of them were all partners. I was like the kind of the outside guy that they brought in to just as a closer. Yeah.
So when that happened, let's take us from Barcelona. What was the next step? Was Barcelona right to Arizona?
It was Barcelona to New York for Christmas and New Year's. So we were there for maybe like 10 days. And then we packed up the truck and Joseph and I just drove cross country in 3 days because we were so excited to get to Scottsdale.
How's life in Scottsdale?
Yeah.
It's beautiful there, huh?
It's incredible. I'm never leaving. I'll be, traveling and whatnot, and I'll have houses. Say maybe I'll have a place in Barcelona, maybe Vietnam and whatnot. But this is going to be home base for sure.
So let's dive into your company right now. What do you guys offer? Like you said, we talked in a bit about it right now, but how quickly is the company expanding right now? Because you guys, like I'm watching you guys, and it seems like you guys are growing pretty rapidly right now.
Well, so yeah, we're scaling at the moment with paid ads. So we were stuck at like 20, 30K a month for our first probably 5 months. I mean, really up into August. This is probably going to be our first 100K month. So we're going to triple our revenue this
Congrats
month.
on that, brother.
Yeah, so we're on track right now to hit our first 100K month, and then our goal is to be doing 250K months by the end of this year. So,
so you're really
that'll
trying to
be-
you're trying to duplicate that really, really, really quickly, huh?
yeah. And it's really just about bringing in the amount of leads into we have a free Facebook group,
Yeah.
which is where we teach like a watered down version of our program that in itself is getting people results, and they're like really nurturing them so that they understand the level of value that we can offer them in our, like what our paid clients get.
Yeah.
And so we've got a whole system where we have moderators that, really engage with everybody, accept people into the group. They moderate and make sure that it's only people that are, really serious. They are asked a series of questions before they can come in. Yeah. And then we've got people called setters that reach out to the people who say yes, that they'd like our help. And then they just diagnose whether or not they're a good fit for the program to get them on my calendar for a strategy session or a sales call.
I want to go somewhere in places with this conversation. I'm going to dive back now. Martial arts quickly. You said it's been a big part of your life for quite a few years in the past. Are you still training martial arts, or no? That's something you've stopped now.
I'm going to be going back, but I haven't been. We also didn't dive into the book. That's my fault.
The book. Okay, let's get there into it. Let's talk about the book quickly.
Do you want me to start there? With the book?
Do the book. Yeah.
Okay. So as of right now, it's going to be broken up into probably several books, but as of right now, the title is A Gypsy with a Gun. And so this at first it was called A Cold Beer and a Broken Watch. And then as life changed and I changed, it more so developed into A Gypsy with a Gun is really somebody who has become a spiritual being that is more so of peace, that's a traveler, and really all the different facades of me, but at the same time is ready to protect anybody that can't protect themselves at all times. And if that's through violence, so be it. Right. Go ahead.
When can we expect this, the publishing of this?
It's going to be 2021, but probably late 2021.
So this has been how many years you said in the works?
2011. So
yeah,
9 years. It'll probably be it'll be a 10-year process. But what I'd like is the structure of it is going to allow me to split it up into 2 books and publish one, and then a year later publish the follow-up, which everybody's going to be like, once you finish reading that first one, you're going to be waiting for the second one. So I don't want you to be waiting more than a year for it. Right. Yeah. Basically the structure of it, and I'll try to keep this short, but basically it starts with a physical description of who I am in 2011, shaved head, tattoos. And then it really just like the very details so that you can picture me. And then it dives into who I believe myself to be, as honest as I can be with myself at that time before this personal development journey, right? And breaking down all the different, like who I've been, my traits, how I perceive myself in all these different ways. And then I explain that I'm going to allow the 4 closest people in my life that I believe know me the best to then do a character evaluation themselves of who they believe me to be, okay, in their most honest, brutally honest way, to then paint a picture of who I actually am as a person from all these different points of view, right? Comparing what everybody says and the things that all match up, I would believe is who I actually am at my core. And then it jumps into January 7th, 1990, the day I was born, and slowly breaks down all the experiences that developed those traits of who I've become and the lessons that I learned. Because one of the biggest things I think I could give myself credit for is all the adversity that I've been through in my life. I've somehow come out on top or turned it into a positive situation or taken the good out of it and been able to press forward. So what I've learned from those experiences, I want to give to somebody else so that maybe they have the opportunity to do the same, right? And then
it's so important, life lessons, right? It's so important, and it's. I always say this, and I cut you off there, Dylan, but I always say this is every single conversation you would have with somebody, if you actually sit there and pay attention, you can learn something off them. And through, whether it's through books or through conversations like we're having today. It's amazing that I just, the stories you're telling me, just they're resonating and clicking in my head and stuff like that. So I love that aspect. I think that's going to connect with a lot of people in your books, which is pretty awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It really, it's a whole process and journey that kind of takes you through, like taking you through my journey, right? But then it ends, or is supposed to end. We'll see where the format goes here. But as of right now, it's supposed to end graduation day of college with my hopes, dreams, where I want to be 10, 15 years from that point. And it really ends with me packing up my stuff to go on this backpacking trip cross country. Right? And then the next book, the follow-up, will be probably starting off with me at 30 years old, right? Or 31, and describes me physically, right? Now long hair, more tattoos, right? All the things, and then jumps into who I believe myself to be now, right? Which I now have the ability to be a lot more honest with who I am, both my skills, my traits, my flaws, the whole nine. And then now, because the four most important people that also know me the best in this, where I am in this point of my life, have changed, right? So those four closest people are going to be different. So they're going to do a character evaluation to agree and disagree with how I perceive myself, to then best paint a picture of who I actually am now. And then it's going to jump into graduation day of college. And it's going to break down every experience that has played a role in developing who I've become and how each of those experiences took place, which eventually would bring us back to courage, right? Which is how we actually ended up here on this call. And then I don't know where that's going to end. So, but that's just where I'm at right now with it. And because I've become so.
Can I ask you a quick question before we get into it? That character evaluation with four individuals that are close to you, where did you get that? I find that so interesting, because I've never even thought of that. And it's, you live your life, you try to be the best person you could, or at least I do, but you never really truly grasp what other people truly feel, or how they characterize you. So I love that. I've never even processed that. So where did you get that mindset even to do that?
I can't even tell you, honestly. I worked on the format of this book for probably a changing it up until I finally was like, wow, this is it. Where I get excited really talking about it, because I feel like the format itself and the journey that it's going to bring you through is going to keep the reader really engaged. And I feel like it's really cool to just hear what other people brutally, honestly think about you.
So I love that. I love that.
It was the best way. It was the best way I could see being able to really give someone that doesn't know me the picture of who I actually am. So yeah, it's I love that. I appreciate the feedback. That makes me even more excited to be getting it out.
Yeah. You're saying that, it just clicked in my head. And then the way I love that your plans for the second illustration of the book, where you're going to bring them back and now they're going to reevaluate you again at this stage in your life. I love that, because you're constantly developing, you're constantly growing. And when you take a few years apart, or even, like you said, that many years apart, it's just, as a human, you've developed and hopefully you develop in the right direction so much more. So it's great to see the difference of people, how they perceive you now to they did in the past, which is, I love that. Right. And that should be a goal. If it's all in the positive, that should be a goal for everybody to do, right?
100%. Yeah. You want, growing. There's two ways that you can grow, right? Overall, it's into your higher self, or a more low vibration. The way that, for me, I think Ed Milet says it best when he gets to what he calls the pearly gates, right? At the end of his life, if he were to be given the opportunity to meet the best version of himself, he does not want to be absolute strangers. He wants to be looking in the mirror of a twin. And for him to reach out his hand and be like, great job, brother. You did it. Like that. That's what I want. My worst fear now is the idea of that and being absolute strangers. Right. So that's where how I put wood on the fire to continuously be putting myself in and more so like the discomfort zone to be growing in whatever way that I can. Where if like I feel a plateau coming on, I literally like I'm almost begging for like the next challenge. And then when it comes, I'm like, oh, I can't believe I asked for this, but yeah, it's Ed Mylett definitely said it best, but it's a thing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Personal development. Let's get back into the martial arts. When did that journey start for you? What age did you start martial arts? What type of martial arts too?
So I started off boxing. I grew up in an area where I grew up at Booker T. Washington Community Center in upstate New York. So I was the only white kid there. I ended up, getting in, not only just there, but in school, was getting in a lot of fights, being rather poor, just like being treated with like a lack of respect, and being a very protective person. I really started to develop this like tough guy ego to like basically like demand respect. So I started to become that tough guy, like fighting and whatnot, so that people would respect me because they weren't going to by my appearance and my clothes. So it was probably like a self-defense mechanism and for my ego. Right. Yeah. And so I really maintained that up until probably like a year or two ago.
So you did boxing all the way through? You did boxing all the way through?
So I went from boxing for probably 2 years to then Muay Thai. And then I went into jiu-jitsu, MMA, Sambo. I early on in life, I had tried like karate, but what I was doing was martial arts shopping for what I was really going to love. Yeah. Right. And I loved jiu-jitsu. I loved MMA, more so no gi. I've had a lot of resistance with gi, which I'm going to shift here shortly. I'm going to start doing gi jiu-jitsu. But then I think once I got to New Orleans, I've been training in Buffalo. I trained with like Bones Jones and a couple other people. They were like coming to our gym at Western New York MMA. And then when I moved to New Orleans, I realized that I really wanted to know how to defend against weapons. So I started doing some research on Krav Maga.
Yeah.
And once I found a gym that was just a Krav Maga gym. At the time it was called Street Smarts Krav Maga. And I went in, and within like a few classes, they were, because of the demand and the need to know how to defend from weapons in New Orleans, you're not allowed to do weapons until you're like level 3 or 4. But they allow me to get into weapons like pretty much immediately. And I fell in love. Not only that, when you walk into an MMA gym, you can like feel the testosterone. It's just a pissing match in some gyms.
Yeah,
and
course.
Even though it's especially jiu-jitsu, all great guys, but it's very competitive. Yeah. And I wasn't typically necessarily looking for that environment. And then I walk into this Krav Maga gym where you've got police and firemen and teachers and nurses and just people that want to be able to protect themselves. They're not looking to like hurt people, and absolutely have to. Yeah. Right. And it's just giving you all those skills to be able to, as a last resort. Right. First, they even teach like, if you can run, just get away from the situation. Like anything can happen. Anything can happen, whether you're the toughest guy on the block or not. So I then fell in love with Krav Maga, that I then went through the instructor training and was becoming an instructor. But to become an instructor fully, you have to go to LA and go through phase A, which is like a $5,000 investment to then come back and teach Krav Maga for $25 a class. Right. So at the time, especially with only having, I wasn't on the SWAT team yet, so I wasn't making as much money, and I wasn't smart with my money. So it just wasn't something that I ended up doing. I was teaching classes, but not like, probably shouldn't have been. So that all came to an abrupt halt, and I slammed my neck at work and cracked vertebrae in my neck, C5 and C6. And then that wasn't treated properly, wasn't handled properly by the department. and I didn't get the like medical attention and in a timely manner that I needed. And that turned into herniated bulge discs and then herniated discs. So I have herniated discs in my neck.
So you have constant pain, huh?
I did until I started doing yoga last year. Yoga has completely eliminated it, where I don't feel it anymore. Unless I drive for like a long period of time, it can get stiff, but that's it. Yeah. So that's the martial arts side of things. I'm going to be looking to go back to jiu-jitsu here soon.
So you're going back, you're going to gi now, huh?
I'm going to, just because like I know that it's just me being like just being weird as far as like not like more so comfortability and just being lazy about it, where I know that there's a lot that I can learn from both gi and no gi. And at the end of the day,
gi is a chess match, right? It becomes more technical. I was having this conversation this morning with it's funny, I'm at my studio, but it's also my head office here and for Comorware. And I had a police officer that came in today, and he's a blue belt, and he's been a blue belt for like 2 years. And we were talking about different schools and different school systems with BJJ. It's crazy is we're just actually discussing from a purple belt to a black belt is a black belt. A purple belt already knows all the moves of a black belt, but the difference of a black belt, they're always 3-4 moves ahead. And it's that whole chess match, right? So you do, as a purple, you'll do a move to a black belt or a brown belt, but that brown or black belt is already thinking 1 or 2 moves ahead of you. That's why they're always ahead of you. And that's the thing with BJJ. When you're doing no-gi, you're gonna get those wrestlers, you're gonna get those farm boys that are so strong and so aggressive, and they pin you down. Like I did BJJ for a while, and I remember, oh man, the injuries you were getting. Like I couldn't come to the office. Like you get these young. I was in my 30s. I'm 43 now, and I was getting these 18-year-old little farm boys, and they're balls to the walls. There's no control in how they would train when there's no gi, and you'd roll with them, and you'd come back the next day, and you got your sternum's bruised, you're destroyed because knees on bellies and all this stuff. So yeah, so a gi is a different mindset. I think you'll appreciate it more now, more because your spiritual side, more because your yoga. You'll understand the whole rolling and the whole. You're always trying to think one move ahead. It kind of works hand in hand with what you are right now. So I think you'll really enjoy it.
I love that. Thanks. Yeah, it's I'm excited to get back, but between my neck and I had shoulder surgery, I dislocated like 7 times between rugby and fighting and
your shoulder, huh?
All that. Yeah. So now it's at the point that I feel healthy enough. My body feels so good. I'm probably in the best shape of my life. Yeah. I feel like it's time. But I'm also a little nervous going back because the last thing I want is to deal with injuries, so I can stay in shape. But
that's the thing with BJJ. As long as you're smart with it, you're good. But I think going to the gi will prevent a lot of the injuries. I think the no gi is just you're so aggressive. So if you're rolling with the wrong guy, you get really injured pretty quickly. I think gi is a little bit more controlled, so it'll be good for you, especially because you have the experience and you're starting as a white belt. I'm assuming now. You'll be able to grow and learn pretty quickly. So I think it'll be good for you. Great workout too. When you're rolling, there's no other type of cardio in the world like rolling.
I know. I'm definitely starting back at white belt. Like I know nothing. I'm just gonna be like a new student is my friend. So
okay. We've been over an hour, but there's a few things I want to talk about before you get out of here. Tattoos. When's your first tattoo? What age were you?
16 illegally.
Yeah, I got my first my 16th. I got my first my 16th birthday too.
Really nice. So for me, you're supposed to be 18, but I committed a federal offense by scanning my birth certificate and changing the date on my birth certificate and taking a copy. And luckily, he actually never asked for it because I went in, it was like just like being cool and chatting about the actual piece that I wanted to get several times, that by the time I actually went in for it, he didn't even ask me for it. And so I got that. It was on my back. I had at like 15 years old, I went to a party with my best friend, Lamar, and we got into an argument. And I just took this bottle of UV red cherry vodka, and I left the party. And I walked to like into this housing development where they're having a block party. And in that 20-minute walk, I downed the entire bottle. I was maybe 140 pounds. And that was the last thing I remember. And the next morning I woke up in my bed, my parents both sitting there, like literally holding my hand, just waiting for me to wake up. And so once I did, they told me to come out into the kitchen to talk to them. And I'm like, I'm nervous. I have no idea what happened whatsoever, but I feel like death. And so I walk out and they ask me if I remember anything, and I tell them no. And so they walk me through the night. And I had actually ended up somehow in the backyard of my little brother's hockey coach, like his backyard. And I was stumbling toward the pool, and I was about 2 feet away from his in-ground pool, like walking straight towards it, like blackout drunk. And he snatched me right before I fell in and brought me out into the front yard in the middle of this entire block party. And they ended up calling an ambulance. I ended up in the hospital, blew like a 2.98, which at the time was enough to kill 2 of me. And the doctor was like, honestly, I don't even know how this kid's alive. Like, there's actually no reason for you to be alive right now. And so they end up, giving me charcoal and pump my stomach, everything. And at the end of it, we're just like, okay, now we just have to wait for him to wake up. And so they end up bringing me home to do that. Parents are like, we want him get home if anything's going to happen. So they bring me home, and like they trying to keep me on my side all night. And I end up waking up and, throwing up cherry vodka and whatnot. And so they made it out to be this, like, you should be dead. Right. And at that time, I was raised, Catholic, and was like, there's got to be a reason that I'm still alive. Right. Just like young, being like, just like seeing it as a sign, right? Like just wanting it to be some sort of sign besides like the fact that my body just actually cross on my back that says, let me live, and like the banner of it, just as like, what I at the time thought was so cool. And now I'm like, I think I'm going to just put a massive boot on my back to cover that up maybe. But yeah, so that was my first tattoo. And shortly after that, I ended up getting my second legally, I think. Legally, maybe. No, I think it was still illegally.
When's the last tattoo you got?
Last tattoo was on my hand right here.
Yeah.
It says you're playing small won't serve the world, or you're playing small doesn't serve the world. It's from the Coach Carter speech when he's when they're all studying. Yeah. So now I'm just covered. Every story you'll like read in my book is somehow depicted on my body.
So this is obviously a journey that you're going to keep going with.
Yeah.
Let's dive into your spiritual side.
Okay.
When did it really start developing? Because that's a huge part of who you are at this point. When did it start developing, and when did you, like, the whole meditation and the whole, like, everything you're doing right now, like when did it all become such a big part of your life?
So it started when I last year did a 40-day yoga and meditation challenge. So like a year after doing that alcohol-free challenge, I now, same exact time frame, ended up in a yoga and meditation challenge. And through that definitely opened it up. There was a moment in yoga class, I'm like the only man in there in the front of the room. And there was a very specific moment that opened up a lot for me. And so it began there, but it didn't really become a major part of my life until I was in Barcelona. So it was the 2-year anniversary of my partner's murder, and it was the same weekend as our event in Barcelona for that company that we were working with. And so that night before the event, I had like a massive breakdown, like ugly crying for like 8 hours. It was like my body knew what time it was, like in the year. Like it was like my body was brought back to that moment, and I just puddles in this Airbnb, and I've been carrying around a lot of guilt for those 2 years, right? I understand now that a lot of things had to be put in place for that to happen, but my decision led to the rest of them, right? My decision to take off work. And so I was carrying around this guilt where it's like he had, a little boy on the way. He's got 2 daughters. He's got a wife. And just like, why? Like, I just don't get it. Like, any other night would have been me. Any other night. But he was sitting in my seat that night because I wasn't there, right? So I end up during this like whole like 7-8 hours from midnight to 7 a.m. right before the actual event, all that crying was me letting go of that guilt that I was carrying around, where it's like I finally like allowed myself to like stop beating myself up for that decision and understanding or trying to understand that it wasn't supposed to be me, or it would have been, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And so then the next day I go to the event and I'm walking up, I'm there early, and I make eye contact with this girl, and my body is just like, what is happening? Who is this? She's amazing. I don't know what to do. I can't take my eyes off her. And it feels like there's like a full reciprocation. Have you ever heard of the term or the concept of twin flames?
Yes.
All right. So eventually they're like just getting set up. She's a host. She's working for the venue. And I end up getting asked to put together these 200 folders that need to be put on every seat for the entire event within like an hour before the event starts, like just working with Rob and them. And so the assistant asked me to do it with this girl. Her name is Mary or Maria. And so we end up like right across from each other, and we're just like, it's like this intense, like flirtatious, like just they put music on, we're singing, we're dancing, we're making folders. And we ended up inviting her to the after party. And then we spent 2.5 months together every single day. Which is there's a lot to unpack in that probably don't have time for. But what it did was it gave me, because I become so insecure in my past, like in that last relationship that just ended. I was not looking for this, right, at all. And I'd also become insecure, and I and didn't feel like I was wanted or loved in my relationship for so long. And as a man, that was really hard to accept. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I've got this person looking at me in a way that I haven't been looked at maybe ever. And at my heart, I'm full of gratitude. I'm in this beautiful Airbnb with all of our business partners, and I'm in the back with one of our friends who's like a spiritual leader in the community. And conversation then turns into unconditional love. And at that point, my just is vibrating like fire, ice, like just this crazy feeling I've never felt before in my entire life. And I'm like overwhelmed. And then I look down and my hands are right here, as if like I was holding boobs, right? Like just like my hands are right here. And I look down and I'm like, my friend Mary, not Mary, but Mary, I'm like, what is happening? And she's like, it's okay. It's just energy. Just try to control it. She's like, she knew exactly what was happening. And so I turn my hands in, and it gets to a point where the energy in between my hands is that we can see it. And everybody starts pouring out of the house. It was almost like it was like attracting them, like some weird way. They were all coming out of the house, and everybody makes a circle around me. And it gets so strong that we can literally see the current traveling from one finger into the other of all my fingers. And in between, like this ball of energy it's just blurry. And everybody can see it. everybody. So I'm like, this is real. This is actually happening. And so eventually I let people start putting their hand in, like, but it's like, there's like this intuition where like, I want you to come in at this certain angle, certain speed, and was like guiding them into it. And pins and needles, really hot or really cold. Even like their, like one person's actual like arm that says like felt like it was like turning to stone. And then at that point, it was hard for me to move my hands. Like I couldn't move them. Like it was almost like it was like we were froze there. And what's funny is I had a lot of resistance with Joey putting his hand in because our connection is so strong. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And sure enough, he lets his hand in. I finally let him do it, and he puts his hand in. And as he breaks the field, you could see like him breaking the field. So he comes in, and as he pulls out, this current latches to his fingers. Everybody can see this happening. Now he pulls away, and it's now meeting at like one point from my fingers to his, and like a triangle almost, and spinning, where all of us can see this current of energy doing this. And so eventually he gets maybe like 2 feet off my hands, and it disconnects, right? So we have like, conversation just like, this is wild. Like, what is this? And at the time it felt like my skull was from my all the way, right? Just felt like a beam of light all the way to the sky. And I just like felt like it was like this wild high I'd never felt before. And so the next day to the pool, meditate, and within like 5 minutes, I bring back the ball of energy in between my hands. And I'm like, holy shit. Reaching out to other spiritual leaders that I know and asking, like basically break them through everything that I just explained to you. And I got 2 things, right? One is, okay, you just had an unsolicited Kundalini awakening, and which supposedly people like work for with like a master for years to be able to achieve. And then the other thing is that activated healing hands, which I believe everybody has the ability to do. Okay. Just so it's a side note, right? I'm not special. Okay. This is something that we all have the ability to do. I just tapped into it, or I'm being called to do it. Okay. So this event, right? This event started really me on a journey of really diving in to figure out what I'm truly capable of, as well as why I'm here, like what I'm supposed to be doing. If you look around at everything, right? I just spent some time in Colorado. Every single thing on earth has a purpose. Every piece of nature.
I love that. I'm a huge believer in that word purpose. I love that. Can we continue?
I mean, look at anything that's living in any way, shape, or form, whether it's a plant, animal, human being, right? Every single thing has a purpose. So for you to think you don't have a purpose, it's just a limiting belief. That's it. At the end of the
100%.
day, right? It's ecosystem is what like we were taught when we forget, right? So that's what really started this. I just recently got my Reiki 1 certification, and I've been doing self Reiki as well as taking on a few friends as clients for Reiki, and that's been really, it's going to just 10x my like the speed of my spiritual journey, because it's bringing me into a whole new world of healing, which I was like, if you would have told me that I would be doing this 1.5 years ago while I was on the SWAT team, I would have laughed in your face.
Yeah,
right?
crazy.
Like hard.
Yeah.
Like you're high, dude. You're high. Like, come on, stop it. So yeah, it's just the spiritual journey has definitely been a wild thing where even when I neglect it and I go like more so masculine energy and focus solely on work, and it's like work, something happens and it pulls me straight back in. Like it won't allow me to get too far away from it before it pulls me back in. And so it's very interesting to watch from like having a little bit more like self-awareness on where I'm at.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. That is amazing, brother. I'm happy you found that. I mean, it's a lot of people search their whole lives to find almost an inner peace. And it seems like you're understanding it at a young age, which is pretty amazing.
Thanks. And still a lot of work to do, but
Oh, you're always, this is a journey. It's life, right? It's a journey, and you're always growing, you're always developing, right? And that's the beauty of us as humans is your mind, your spiritual beliefs, and your journey only goes as far as how you want it to go. So the more you put your time into it and effort, it's going to keep growing and going, which is pretty amazing. I always ask one question before we end our podcast here. I ask every guest, and I think this will be an interesting one to hear where your mind is. If you were to be gone today, where you are in your mind today, how, in a few words, how would you want to be remembered by your people around you?
I love you.
Simple, sweet. I love that. I love that.
If you weren't even if you weren't gonna see me for a year, right? Say I was gone.
Yeah.
No social media, nothing. If the last, no matter what, the last words I'm gonna tell you, okay, the most powerful thing in the world is love. So I'm gonna tell you that I love you. Simple as that.
I'm going to leave you with one little thing that I was actually talking to somebody, and I was actually trying to explain this to somebody the other day. I got a 12, we talked about it before we went to air. I got a 12 and a 14-year-old, a 14-year-old daughter, a 12-year-old son. And as entrepreneurs, I find a lot of my realm of entrepreneurs that I deal with, it's always, I'm gone, I've been busy, I'll bring home a gift for the kids, I'll travel, I'll bring home a gift for the kids. And I keep telling the same thing to every single one of them is, your kid does not want gifts. Your kid does not want materialistic items. Your kid wants love. And passing them and showing them love and giving them affection and giving them your time is going to build these blocks for them a lot more than anything else in the rest of their lives. So I think that is a huge aspect. And I love that you said that, love, because that I that's something I like. I'll reward my kids by giving them time. What I mean by that is I'm always home. 3 to 7 o'clock is my time at home. So I'm always home for dinner, all that kind of stuff. But my mindset with my kids is if they accomplish something that's rewarding, it's like, okay, let's go spend the day together and let's talk and let's talk about what that experience was. And let's spend the day together. Let's go have lunch. And I find giving them love and time is a lot more, developing them a lot more than the gifts and all that kind of stuff. So I love that part that you said about love, which is a huge part.
That's incredible, because as children, right, if we're not getting love, we equate love to attention. And what that becomes as an adult is us seeing love and attention as the same thing, which creates an issue when it comes to our society now as social media and all these things where you want attention, and it gives you the same exact feeling as love, because as a child, you connected them as being the same thing.
100%.
So you are disconnecting that. So they don't believe that attention is love. But giving time to them, right? That's literally, kids break shit because they want attention so badly because they're not getting love, and they equate it as the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I love that.
You're doing your children such an incredible favor by really rewarding them with your time and love, when like a lot of, especially with everything that you do, right, and building, it's incredible. That's like you're from my perspective, right, in my opinion, I think you're doing an incredible job then, because
thank you, brother.
That's very important.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. That's a wrap for today, man. It's been this roller coaster as a conversation today. Man, this has gone everywhere. I love this. I can honestly tell you, this has probably been one of my most enjoyable conversations, because it's been so many little stories in here that it just captivated me. And you could have took any of them and you just drive and you just want to listen to it, right? So Dylan, thank you for taking the time of your schedule to do this. This has been awesome, brother. I greatly appreciate it. On all the show notes, I'm going to put how to get a hold of Dylan. If you want to get a hold of this, if you're a coach or starting an online business, and you want to join his Facebook group, get some more insight, learn more, be part of the group, I'm going to put all that information, how to get a hold of Dylan, how to get a hold of his partners. And thank you, brother. Is there anything you want to say before we head out?
One, thank you. I really appreciate this. This conversation has been absolutely incredible. I'll leave it with this, because this is what it brought us to the call, right?
Yeah.
I find courage sexy as fuck, right? That post that I put out really, ignited the ability for us to get on this conversation. And so I just want to say that courage in itself is what has gotten me here. And so when I see somebody else, right, not just a woman, right, but as a woman, when I see a woman who's doing something courageous, that I see a limitless being, right? Somebody whose potential is absolutely limitless, and they're making decisions from their heart and their soul, not from their ego, right? And so it's not just women that I'm attracted to that are courageous, but all beings, right? Men as well as a friend, right? I'm attracted to people who are full of courage, and they make decisions beyond their fear. And that is probably one of the biggest traits that I feel like has gotten me to where I am and is going to get me to where I'm going, which is so far outside my radar screen, I couldn't even tell you. Right. So I just wanted to leave with that piece, because courage and really, no matter what, making a decision past your fears is going to get you to where you truly want to be and where your purpose lies.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you, brother. Have a wonderful day, man.
I'm looking forward to hopefully hopping on with you again. Maybe we'll get both Joey and me together.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
These things. So we'll chat here soon. Thank you again.
Thank you, brother. That's a wrap for today. I want to thank Dylan for taking time out of his schedule to be a guest on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. Great individual, inspiring, great future. If you guys enjoy this podcast as much as I have, tell your friends, tell your family. We're trying to build something special here. Leave a review. 5 stars will be absolutely amazing. Until next time, everyone, always move forward.